hello, GMBM, everybody. Welcome to the Onchain Media Podcast. I'm joined today by Toady Hawk, an absolute legend, an absolute GOAT, an OG. I've seen in the space for so many years, and it's been a long time coming. It took several attempts to get this scheduled for today, but we are here finally. And Toady, I'm so excited to dive into your story, Bettrmint, and everything you're working on today, man.
Amazing. Happy to be here. Glad we could get it scheduled, and excited for the conversation.
Yeah, same. So I guess I'll start at the top thing. Like, I know this is very core to what you care about, your brand, your identity. I want to go a little bit back and kind of hear your journey into the space, and, also about your journey in Nouns. Cause I could see the noggles on your flag behind you. And before we dive into your current work, I remember you leading like the Nouns community calls, the tavern spaces. Like, you've just been everywhere in the Nouns community. So I'm curious if you can kind of give a breakdown of your journey into the on-chain space and what your journey has been like at Nouns.
Sure. So I got into the space late 2020, early 2021. So not as long as some, actually. I wouldn't consider myself an OG, but definitely like a 2021 class of 2021 NFT OG for sure. Prior to that, I've basically just been a serial entrepreneur in my life. I had, several companies for over the course of 15 years, mostly doing marketing and go-to-market and these types of things locally where I'm from. So really not like a crypto background at all. My college studies were actually in journalism, funny enough. Like, I never practiced as a journalist, and actually most of the people that I went to school with never practiced as journalists either. Most of the people graduated from that program went into PR or advertising or opened their own businesses and, took their communication skills elsewhere, basically. But it's funny that now some of the stuff that I am doing and that you're doing is kind of like journalistic a little bit.
It is. It fully, totally is.
Yeah, there's a vibe.
We're storytelling. We're asking questions, listening to people's stories. So that totally.
Everything comes full circle, I guess. And so that's, you sort of draw. I feel like in life you just you sort of pick up skills as you go, like you're in a video game. You just pick up
loot boxes
and then you just put them all together and you figure out what to build next with the skills that you have and what you've learned. And that's kind of been my story.
I feel like a lot of us have like these unconventional paths into the on-chain space. Like, I actually started out, my background's in fine arts, like from, I went to art school. So nice. Going from being in art school, working in the credit industry, starting 2 companies, like, it wasn't exactly a character arc that I expected for myself, but I definitely use my creativity in things I do today with, with Onchain Media, with my media company. So,
it's never linear, right? So.
Yeah, exactly.
I also have that maybe cliche moment too, that because I have a podcast as well, and I often ask similar questions to my guests, and it seems like COVID always comes up as this interesting turning point in people's life. I'm sure you've seen that
introspective period where you're like diving deep, like, what am I going to do in my life? What does the world need? Yeah. I'm
trapped in that same cliche. Like, for me, that was kind of a transitional time for me when a lot of the business that I did have in the meat space was drying up, or it was at least in question about whether it was going to continue to be the contracts were going to continue to be signed, etc. And so I had a lot of time to think, a lot of time to be on the internet, and sort of fell down the rabbit hole of crypto at that time. And funny enough, I think it was a video of Michael Saylor, who was explaining Bitcoin and why he was so bullish on it. And, he's become kind of a meme by now. But at the time I was reading and I was like, oh, this is a very serious businessman. And he's got, he's got a real business and he's putting all of his money and all of his bets behind Bitcoin. I was like, I could do that as well with my companies, and ended up putting some reserve cash flow that I didn't need right then at that time into Bitcoin. And that ended up being a very good decision at that exact moment in time, because Bitcoin ended up going on kind of a pretty crazy run during the COVID period. So that got me hooked, got me thinking, got me interested anyway in learning more about the space. Found out about Ethereum, found out about NFTs. And so I was kind of part of that whole frothy 2021 summer where
that 2021 bull run, man. It was a really interesting time to come in around, ETH Denver 2021. It's kind of euphoria in the market at that time.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of relevant too into how I came into the Nouns ecosystem too, because I did kind of burn out a little bit on all that hype and froth in the NFT market, and then I ended up, really falling in love with Gremplin's collection Cryptodes. And I minted a Cryptoad, which actually would later become my namesake.
I just want to say, I love your toad. And something it reminds me of, I don't know if I'm like the only person, but it kind of reminds me of Squidbillies a little bit. Like, am I the only person that thinks, I don't know.
I can see that. Yeah. Are you talking about my noun or my frog noun or my Cryptoad?
I guess it's the one, like your Telegram profile picture. I don't know if it's your
that's
PFP.
my noun. That's my
noun.
frog noun. So before that, though, I had to sort of rewind a little bit. I had a Cryptoad, which is another collection by Gremplin, so one of the artists from Nouns. And my original PFP that I used to use, and maybe I'll bring it back sometime because it's a classic, but it's just a toad with a mohawk. And at one point, Gremplin, the artist, was like on Twitter, he was like, show us your lore, tell us the lore of your toad. And I just like on the spot made up this story. Oh, that one.
Yeah, this one. I don't know why. Like when I look at it, it just brings me back to Squidbillies on Adult Swim.
Yeah, this brings it full circle because this is Gremplin drawing me on a live stream and like drawing me as my noun frog, but like with like a toadish kind of.
Whoa.
Aesthetic. So that really marries like the aesthetic of the two PFPs I've used.
We should do another live stream where we draw the drawing that was drawn on the live stream, and then we keep it going. We keep it going.
Here we go. But yeah, so that's where Toady Hawk came from. Is I just like made up this story on the spot of this toad that like has a mohawk and is on a skateboard and loves playing Tony Hawk, pro skater and whatever. And that just kind of became my identity. I loved that NFT. I had it as my PFP all through 2021, right through until I got my noun basically, which ended up being like a big goal for me to buy my own noun at the time.
Yeah, that's so on my bucket list. I have spent many a day and night looking at the auction to just be sniped by a bot and not actually be able to get one.
Be grateful that the auctions are like 1 to 2 ETH now, because back then in the froth of 2021, these things were going by. Try again, 60, 70 ETH at the peak.
Wow.
So it was kind of crazy. And but yeah, I got interested in Cryptodes. I got interested in Nouns via that because Nouns was obviously the same artist and similar vibes. And I just became kind of attracted to this idea in Nouns in particular of like building a brand without top-down influence, like the idea of just like setting IP free and seeing if like a grassroots movement could build a brand that has lasting effects. And I think Nouns has done that. For any of its failings or any of its foibles, like Nouns is still around. Most projects from 2021 are not. People still have the noggles, in their backgrounds on live streams. And the meme is very strong. And so I think that's what like drew me into that ecosystem. And plus just like a lot of really great people. I met some of my best friends in this space that I'm still really good friends with to this day.
Shout out to Prof. Shout out to Nounish Professor. I just had her on for amazing. Her and Adrian for a podcast. Yeah, there's some really incredible people. Like the Nouns DAO community people are just very, I don't know, just like kind of a higher caliber, like I'd say more like people who understand the philosophy of our space and are here for the right reasons. Like I feel like the kind of person I encounter a lot in the Nouns ecosystem.
Yeah, Nouns is like, I always think of it as like the cartoonish, like bizarro incarnation of Ethereum, in the sense that like all of the first principles of Ethereum are kind of the same ones that the founders of Nouns espoused in terms of, open source, both in the case of the code and the art, CC0 art, open source code, funding public goods. And yeah, just generally like trying to keep things weird a little bit. So a lot of us were attracted to Nouns for that reason. I think like also like the positive sum philosophy too of Nouns was something that attracted me.
The open source too.
Yeah. And I say this a lot because I did have a career before crypto, and I always hated how, like wall garden pilled everyone is in most industries outside of Onchain. And it's like, it's always what can we do to protect our state secrets? How can we refuse to cooperate with the competition to freeze them out? And then you come in this space and it's just not always, and some sectors more than others, but at least in Ethereum, I'll say that like I feel like the positive sum collaborative nature of builders is just so much better to work in that sort of sphere where everyone's kind of understanding that we're early and that like we're building Legos together, and that if we all help each other, we can get to a higher place together instead of having to like cut each other off at the knees all the time and be super competitive that way.
100%. And I feel like I try to encourage people wherever I go in the space. Like the PvP mindset, I feel like isn't good for our space. I feel like we all go further together when we support one another. So I try to do that through, storytelling, through making content. And I feel like you really do that as well. So I'm curious, like what inspired you to start doing your podcast, to start doing content? Like you are all over the timeline doing streams, your podcast, like what made you go down that path?
Well, I don't want to bore everybody with my story too much, but I guess that's why I'm here. So if you're tuned into this podcast, you signed up for it. But I guess I can sort of start by saying my first like job, I guess, in this space was as a community manager for a Nounish project called Noun Punks. And the story there was kind of funny because like I saw the art. I thought it was really cool. It was like an interesting custom blend of like punks and nouns together. I thought it would really do well. But I saw this Twitter, and the Twitter, and it was Twitter at the time, it wasn't X. But they had like 50 followers, okay? And he put out a post saying, launching tomorrow, 10,000 noun punks. And I DM'd this guy out of the blue, and I was like, bro, like, these are really cool. Like, I love the art, but you can't launch a 10K PFP collection tomorrow with 50 followers. Like, what, is every follower going to buy 200 of these? Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I've just been working on these like a baby for 4 months. I just need to get them out of my system. Like, very like understandable artist sentiment. And he's like, I just need to get them out. And so he launched them, but unfortunately, like, as marketing doesn't do itself. And so they kind of flopped because nobody knew about them. And so a week later, he slid back in my DMs and he was like, can you help me? Like, I can't pay you, but if these do well and they mint out, I'll pay you then. And we'll figure it out. And so I did. I just took it as a learning opportunity. I was like, let's see if I can help this collection mint out. And, we did some work on the timeline, on the socials. And like 2 weeks later, we ended up minting out the collection. And like all 10,000, it was kind of like, if you remember at the time, like if you minted out a 10K PFP, it was pretty crazy, the vibes and like the instant community formation. Yeah. And so then he gave me a grant from the amounts that the mint brought in. It was like, hey, work with us for a while. And I ended up working with that project for 4 or 5 months as their community lead. And he was like, at the time, he's like, every project has to do Twitter Spaces. Like, that's a rule. You remember in 2021, if you didn't do Twitter Spaces, it was super bearish. And so he was like, I need you to do Twitter Spaces once a week. And I was like, okay, well, I've never done it before. So I just started doing these spaces. They were called Toady Tuesdays. It was a Tuesday space with Noun.
That's a good name.
Toady Tuesdays. That's how it all started. And I ended up realizing I was pretty good at moderating that way, pretty good at keeping the conversation going. Seneca from Nouns, one of the founders of Nouns and the founder of a protocol called Prop House, which was really cool at the time. It was like an experiment in decentralized funding of smaller projects for DAOs and collectives. And he was trying to incorporate other Nounish projects into his project. And so we linked that way and did a couple spaces together. And he was like, yo, I really like how you do this. He would never say yo. I don't know what Seneca would say. He would never say.
It's added for dramatic effect.
For dramatic effect, paraphrased. Yeah. No, but Seneca was like, hey, like I really think you're great at this. Can you come and help do some of these spaces for Prop House? And so I ended up doing a weekly space for Prop House. Started getting more involved in like Nouns proper at that time. Dove in the Discord at the time. Met a lot of people, met a lot of friends. And then at one point, me and one of my friends in the eco saw this tweet that the granddaddy founder of Nouns, Punk4156, had tweeted and said that he'd like to see Noun o'clock, the daily time when the 24-hour auction of Nouns rolls over. He'd like to see that time become a moment for the internet, I think is how he put it. And me and my friend Dan from Nouns, Noun142, we were talking and we're like, hey, why don't we like do a Twitter Spaces at that time every day? We can do kind of like a little art contest and just see if we can get, like a moment for at least the community to sort of gather around and learn. And that's how 9 o'clock live was born. We started doing that space with like the tongue-in-cheek thought, like, let's do this every day and just see how it goes. Just like Nouns, Nouns are born one a day, every day, forever. Like, what if we just did a Twitter Spaces once a day, every day, forever?
Wow.
Proceeded to do that for 10,000 days in a row from that time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think like especially with decentralized movements too, like Nouns, they're really only as good as whoever steps up and like creates something interesting, you know? And so I'm very, very grateful, very thankful for my time working in the Nouns ecosystem. I still consider myself to be working in the Nouns ecosystem, even if not like as fully as maybe I was before. Like as Nouns sort of changed and evolved.
I did hear there was a certain transition with Nouns, like a certain like group or couple individuals own a majority of Nouns now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. What I would say and what I have been saying to people when they ask me is that Nouns is a true DAO. It's not a LARP. Like it is an actually decentralized organization. And as such, it's like
permissionless.
It's an emergent organism, right? Permissionless, emergent organism. And there's always going to be and always have been seasons of Nouns where like the people who have the most energy to contribute and own the most Nouns at that time will help to shape the narratives and the direction
the culture,
of the DAO.
Yeah.
I think there's like big N Nouns and small N Nouns, just like there's like big C conservative and small C conservative. And I've been calling myself a small N Nounish person because I will always feel connected to that community and connected to the original principles that brought us together. I'm super like public domain, open source pilled. My media collective, Zero Rights Media, which is basically kind of got spun out from the Noun Square at the start of this year, is all about like embodying those principles of like setting content free. It's about like making content about Ethereum that espouses the very principles that Ethereum is founded on, telling the story of Ethereum builders, and that means like base builders and other like Ethereum ecosystem builders in a way that is also free and that people can use and remix and collect. So I still feel like, you know, very Nounish. I've got Nouns in my background.
I know, I see.
Our logo, which
Man,
I'm not
it's
wearing
just,
anywhere
it's
on
a
me,
symbol that's so ingrained and woven into the fabric of our industry. It's like, you can't be in the on-chain space without seeing Nouns at some capacity, right? Like, it's just,
I have noggles at arm's reach, you know. Like,
I just think Nouns has made a lot of positive impact, and yeah, I mean, this is all one big social experiment, right? So,
exactly.
like, it's kind of, there's also an exciting element to that, like watching it play out, and you know, it can go in any way. So,
I mean, Nouns is still here, and like that is more than most projects from 2021 can say. The founders are not super active anymore, and the project is still here and it's still alive, and that's like, you know, that's something.
Yeah.
And there's people building still. There's lots of other people are still using the Nouns ethos and brand to build cool things. Drew Kaufman.
Shout out to Drew. Okay. I want to talk to you
Noun
about
Coffee.
Yeah, Noun Coffee. Yeah. I'm actually going to FWB Fest this weekend, and I saw that Nouns Coffee is a whole thing they're doing at this festival. So I definitely need to buy a cup of coffee with crypto there. That's like a bucket list item in my life.
Yeah, Drew and Derek, like they had some hiccups with trying to get the location that they were trying to get, and they just persisted and obviously found a really cool place, and it's going to be nice to see it come to life. Like, to me, that was always Nouns, like taking a big crazy bet on people that you believe in and letting them just like do something interesting that maybe they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. To me, that 100%. Was very Nounish.
So, okay, just to kind of move on to like your arc now, you know, you came up in the 2021 NFT cycle. You've been building in Nouns. Now let's talk about Bettrmint, because like you're extremely active in the base community. I see Bettrmint. You know, you're one of the top builders on Farcaster. You like live there now. So tell us about like what a day in the life is like for Toady and what you're currently working on.
Farcaster 2 is a good thing to sort of bring back to my time in Nouns, because actually Nouns is the reason why I was super early to Farcaster, because at one point in time, the founders made a very controversial decision in the Nouns community to close the Discord. So there was an official Nouns Discord. There was actually just a Discord owned by the founders of Nouns. And the founders were kind of like, you know, if this is going to be a truly decentralized DAO, there can't be a centralized meeting place, because we'll always have the right or the ability to like silence people or to kick them out of the Discord and what have you. And that's not an actual decentralized space. And this was very controversial. Some people cite it as the reason that Nouns went downhill. I think it was a good decision. Wow. I think it was a brave decision or an interesting decision to make. But all that being said, like Nouns needed sort of a new place to congregate, and Farcaster was the most obvious place for that to happen, because it was like the emerging decentralized social network at the time. And so all Nouns members and community members were basically grandfathered in to join early on, just using the passcode Nouns, and Dan got us all connected. And so we were on there very early. And I don't know, there's something about, I don't know why I loved Farcaster so much, but certainly having a community that we joined with early on was helpful because you had this like microcosm within the community where you already had people that were like going to interact with your posts and you had stuff to talk about.
And it makes
So
it stickier. It makes you want to show up when you have that human connection piece.
And those games didn't succeed because they were like brilliant games with amazing graphics. They succeeded because of the built-in network effects of being like embedded in a social network. And like anything that's embedded in the social graph is just so OP compared to something that's not, because every action you take can be shared with all of your friends the moment you take it. And so mini apps was this similar moment for Onchain where, you know, you could build an app that does anything. Maybe it's a game, but maybe it's a utility, maybe it's a trading app, whatever the case may be. It can now live right in the feed so that people can like interact with it without leaving Farcaster, the app, without leaving the base app, which is also integrated with Farcaster. And so that's like a pretty big unlock and like a pretty interesting way of like having built-in distribution for something that you build on day one. And so I always, since that launched, I always kind of wanted to think of an idea for a mini app. And I'm not technical. I don't know how to code, but I had met some people along the way that I knew would be interested in working on something like that. And I'm, you know, a very good project manager, a very good idea guy, a pretty good yapper. And so I knew if I could find the right idea, you know, we could probably make something work or at least give it a good go.
Next, I do want to touch on Bettrmint. I mean, I've seen you grinding. I've seen it all over the timeline. We got the cyan and pink here today for those of you watching the podcast.
Love it.
So can you tell us about Bettrmint?
Yeah. So Bettrmint is a mini app on Farcaster or on the base app that basically turns supporting on-chain creators into a thrice weekly live event where you log into the app, you collect a piece of content, and then you get to spin a neon flywheel and potentially win tokens back on the base, on base. It could be different tokens depending on our partners for that week. So it just adds like a little bit of a dopamine rush, a little reason to show up and support a creator and collect their content and potentially get some bonuses back. We launched it about 3 months ago just to see what would happen. We didn't know if it would get any traction. People loved it. We started doing $1,500 prize pools using the token that we launched for the project, which is $Better, as well as tokens from other projects who see it as a good opportunity to get distribution and distribution. So distribution of their token to lots of different people who play the game, and then also just distribution in the form of eyeballs and like people finding out about your project. So between those two sources, we've created these prize pools, $1,500 3 times a week, and the demand has been so great that we can't even keep the games longer than 15 minutes. We've been trying different things and tweaking mechanisms to make the games longer, but there's just so many people waiting to play. It's a really, good problem to have, quote unquote. But people love it. They show up, they collect. Up until recently, our creators were making like $300 or $400 every time they were featured in the app.
Wow.
We just recently landed a partnership with BP.fun. Shout out to the folks at Blueprint. And they've offered us such a really great split for creators that now they'll be making closer to $600 for every mint that they do on Bettrmint.
This is awesome. Really, and I see this is Rachel's good news show here.
Yeah, this is what you see. What you're showing now is what you see in the app between games. So you can see next game and it says 9 minutes and 1 hour, 9 minutes and 32 seconds. Scared me there for a second. It's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. EST. And when that happens, this screen that you're looking at will change, and it'll show the new content of the day. You collect it. Neon wheel will pop up automatically. You'll spin it. It's kind of like a little arcade vibe, really fun.
I wanted to show you like the first iterations of my Onchain Media logo because it's definitely like similar inspiration and style. Like I was definitely, this was.
I swear to God, I never saw that.
Yeah, so. No, I know. I totally believe you. It was not like we weren't super loud about Onchain Media. Like we were starting to do it, but I still like wanted to work on the logo, and I actually ended up hiring Ryan from the creators to work on this new logo here, and got like my whole new brand and kind of abstracted this to make it more like an abstract like microphone logo.
Like it, yeah.
So but yeah, this is the origins of Onchain Media, definitely leaning into the neon, late night, like black brick. Yeah,
I think that's a fun vibe. It's got like a retro vibe. It's not too like in your face, but it kind of people have said only positive things about it. They really enjoy it. They find it's very nostalgic and fun, and that's definitely what I was going for. I did the design on the UX, and then my partner NetKnows, who's an amazing technical developer. I know him from the Yellow Collective, which is a previous project that I founded as well. As a fork of Nouns on DAO in the service of creators. I met him there. We started chatting a lot and working on smaller projects. And then, I approached him about this idea and asked him if he thought it was a good idea. And he's like, yes, let's build it. And so we just started cooking together.
And
he's
love
just
that.
been incredible. Like the amount that he's shipped, the different features that he's shipped, and some of the features that we haven't released yet that are going to be pretty amazing. Yeah, if you're following what we're doing on Bettrmint, at Bettrmint, on Farcaster, you'll just see like we're just shipping new things. We're thinking a lot about like how can we make the better token, the native token for the app? How can we make it a fun token to hold, a valuable token to hold? We have an interesting sort of flywheel within a flywheel that we've designed where like the better the token does, the more we can use it for community initiatives. We were one of the first launches on Clanker that used their Vault series or their Vault feature, when they came out with it. So that allowed you to basically put aside a percentage of the supply for community use. At the time, the most you could set aside was 30% of the supply, but you could also do a dev buy for 20% of the supply. But instead of taking a dev allocation, we decided to use the dev buy to add even more to the community fund. So essentially 50% of the supply of the token right off the bat went into a vault to be used for airdrops to reward players in the game, and prizes in the game and other community initiatives. So, a lot of people have been asking me for advice on like launching tokens for their mini apps and whatnot. And like, I keep saying the same thing. Like if I could have reserved more of the supply, I would have. Like, I think just having the once in a lifetime opportunity to create money from thin air and use it as a crypto native incentive mechanism to like incentivize the type of behavior that you want to see from the users of your app is just too great to pass up. And so long as you're trusted and you show that you have good intentions with your token and you're not going to rug people and you like lock tokens where it's appropriate, etc., people are going to see it as bullish because it's less circulating supply. And you get to decide, what you do with it. Like DGen really wrote the book and the playbook on this.
Yeah,
because, like,
DGen.
They loved so much of that token and they just gave it away. And like, if you were to tell someone that you could make a healthy token by just like locking it up and then giving it away to people, they would have said you were crazy. But now we're starting to realize that like distribution via distribution is actually quite powerful. Like being able to let people learn about your project via a token by tipping it right in the feed, using Noise or using Tippin, and using games like Warp Slot and Bettermint and some of these other games to like find new audiences for both your app and like what your story, and then also audiences or holders for your token. These are just novel like things that are only possible in the on-chain space. And so like we need to experiment with them and see what works and what doesn't.
100%. Well, you are definitely doing it with Bettermint. And I'm very excited to see how this plays out and to have our podcast featured on Bettermint. I'm super excited about that. Just to kind of put a bow on everything, where can people find you? Where can folks try Bettermint? And where can folks connect with your projects?
Yeah. So one thing I'll say is that like Bettermint is right now a Farcaster native project, and that's because it's a mini app and you have to be on Farcaster to use it. So if you're not on Farcaster, first things first, get over there, check it out. I know it can be a hard cold start problem, but if you see me at toadyhawk.eth, send me a DM, comment under something. I always try to amplify new people on the network. So join, check it out, give it a chance, and then check out the mini app. You can go to at Bettermint on Farcaster and you can see our posts there. You can go to the mini app drawer, which is part of the Farcaster app, search for Bettermint, Betrmint, and give it a try on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday at 3 p.m. EST. And just see how you like it. And then the last show I'll allow myself here is just to say that we are doing a pretty fun artist series right now called Neon Chain Summer. It's got the vibe is basically like Base Onchain Summer. Thank you. Base Onchain Summer, but make it neon. We've got 16 artists basically lined up over the next 2 months to do really cool custom art drops with a neon aesthetic in their own style and medium. We're going to drop them on the app. We're going to be giving out tokens during those games from amazing sponsors like Base, Tippin, Noise, lots of really great projects that you'll recognize from around the Farcaster ecosystem. The Creator, I know you know Ryan from the Creators, and also Cretor DAO, which just launched.
I love Creator. I love what they're doing, what Nathan and Kong are doing.
Yeah, so and DGen as well. So lots of these awesome projects came together to sponsor prize pools so that we're able to get money in the hands of these creators for their creativity. Super excited about that. Please come follow along, and let's see if it's possible to build sustainable ways for artists and creators to get paid for their creativity on chain.
I just want to thank you for taking the time today, man. Definitely follow Toady. Try Bettrmint. Get on Farcaster if you're not on Farcaster. And yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.